This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know, www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Welcome to Morning Mindset. We will be reading from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, pages 110 through 114, and then having a discussion. Let's get started, shall we? The major attributes of leadership. The following are important factors of leadership. 1. Unwavering courage, based upon knowledge of self and of one's occupation. No follower wishes to be dominated by a leader who lacks self-confidence and courage. No intelligent follower will be dominated by such a leader very long. 2. Self-control. The man who cannot control himself can never control others. Self-control sets a mighty example for one's followers, which the more intelligent will emulate. 3. A keen sense of justice. Without a sense of fairness and justice, no leader can command and retain the respect of his followers. 4. Definiteness of decision. The man who wavers in his decisions shows he is not sure of himself. He cannot lead others successfully. 5. Definiteness of plans. The successful leader must plan his work and work his plan. A leader who moves by guesswork without practical definite plans is comparable to a ship without a rudder. Sooner or later, he will land on the rocks. 6. The habit of doing more than paid for. One of the penalties of leadership is the necessity of willingness upon the part of the leader to do more than he requires of his followers. 7. A pleasing personality. No slovenly, careless person can become a successful leader. Leadership calls for respect. Followers will not respect a leader who does not grade high on all of the factors of a pleasing personality. 8. Sympathy and understanding. The successful leader must be in sympathy with his followers. Moreover, he must understand them and their problems. 9. Mastery of detail. Successful leadership calls for mastery of details of the leader's position. 10. Willingness to assume full responsibility. The successful leader must be willing to assume responsibility for the mistakes and the shortcomings of his followers. If he tries to shift this responsibility, he will not remain the leader. If one of his followers makes a mistake and shows himself incompetent, the leader must consider that it is he who failed. 11. Cooperation. The successful leader must understand and apply the principle of cooperative effort and be able to induce his followers to do the same. Leadership calls for power, and power calls for cooperation. There are two forms of leadership. The first, and by far the most effective, is leadership by consent of and with the sympathy of the followers. The second is leadership by force, without the consent and sympathy of the followers. History is filled with evidences that leadership by force cannot endure. The downfall and disappearance of dictators and kings is significant. It means that people will not follow forced leadership indefinitely. The world has just entered a new era of relationship between leaders and followers, which very clearly calls for new leaders and a new brand of leadership in business and industry. Those who belong to the old school of leadership by force must acquire an understanding of the new brand of leadership, cooperation, or be relegated to the rank and file of the followers. There is no other way out for them. The relationship of employer and employee, or of leader and follower in the future, will be one of mutual cooperation, based upon an equitable division of the profits of business. In the future, the relationship of employer and employee will be more like a partnership than it has been in the past. Napoleon, Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany, the Tsar of Russia, and the King of Spain were examples of leadership by force. Their leadership passed. Without much difficulty, one might point to the prototypes of these ex-leaders. Among the business, financial, and labor leaders of America who have been dethroned or slated to go, leadership by consent of the followers is the only brand which can endure. Men may follow the forced leadership temporarily, but they will not do so willingly. The new brand of leadership will embrace the 11 factors of leadership described in this chapter, as well as some other factors. The man who makes these the basis of his leadership will find abundant opportunity to lead in any walk of life. The Depression was prolonged largely because the world lacked leadership of the new brand. At the end of the Depression, the demand for leaders who are competent to apply the new methods of leadership has greatly exceeded the supply. Some of the old type of leaders will reform and adapt themselves to the new brand of leadership, but generally speaking, the world will have to look for new timber for its leadership. This necessity may be your opportunity. The 10 major causes of failure in leadership. We come now to the major faults of leaders who fail, because it is just as essential to know what not to do as it is to know what to do. 1. Inability to organize details. Efficient leadership calls for ability to organize and to master details. No genuine leader is ever too busy to do anything which may be required of him in his capacity as leader. When a man, whether he is the leader or follower, admits that he is too busy to change his plans or to give attention to any emergency, he admits his inefficiency. The successful leader must be the master of all details connected with his position. That means, of course, that he must acquire the habit of relegating details to capable lieutenants. 2. Unwillingness to render humble service. Truly great leaders are willing, when occasion demands, to perform any sort of labor which they would ask another to perform. The greatest among ye shall be the servant of all, is a truth which all able leaders observe and respect. 3. Expectation of pay for what they know instead of what they do with that which they know. The world does not pay men for that which they know. It pays them for what they do or induce others to do. Fear of competition from followers. The leader who fears that one of his followers may take his position is practically sure to realize that fear sooner or later. The able leader trains understudies to whom he may delegate at will any of the details of his position. Only in this way may a leader multiply himself and prepare himself to be at many places and give attention to many things at one time. It is an eternal truth that men receive more pay for their ability to get others to perform than they could possibly earn by their own efforts. An efficient leader may, through his knowledge of his job and the magnetism of his personality, greatly increase the efficiency of others and induce them to render more service and better service than they could render without his aid. 5. Lack of imagination. Without imagination, the leader is incapable of meeting emergencies and of creating plans by which to guide his followers efficiently. 6. Selfishness. The leader who claims all the honor for the work of his followers is sure to be met by resentment. The really great leader claims none of the honors. He is contented to see the honors, when there are any, go to his followers, because he knows that most men will work harder for commendation and recognition than they will for money alone. 7. Intemperance. Followers do not respect an intemperate leader. Moreover, intemperance in any of its various forms destroys the endurance and the vitality of all who indulge in it. Disloyalty. Perhaps this should have come at the head of the list. The leader who is not loyal to his trust and to his associates, those above him and those below him, cannot long maintain his leadership. Disloyalty marks one as being less than the dust of the earth and brings down on one's head the contempt he deserves. Lack of loyalty is one of the major causes of failure in every walk of life. 9. Emphasis of the authority of leadership. The efficient leader leads by encouraging and not by trying to instill fear in the hearts of his followers. The leader who tries to impress his followers with his authority comes within the category of leadership through force. If a leader is a real leader, he will have no need to advertise that fact except by his conduct, his sympathy, his understanding, fairness, and a demonstration that he knows his job. 10. Emphasis of title. The competent leader requires no title to give him the respect of his followers. The man who makes too much over his title generally has little else to emphasize. The doors to the office of the real leader are open to all who wish to enter, and his working quarters are free from formality or ostentation. These are among the more common of the causes of failure in leadership. Any one of these faults is sufficient to induce failure. Study the list carefully if you aspire to leadership and make sure that you are free of these faults. We're going to stop there. How's that for a reading on leadership? And for those who didn't have a copy of the book and want to glance through the couple of pages that I read, it was all about leadership. Basically, the do's and don'ts and what you have and what to have and what not to have. All right, seats open if anybody would like to jump in and start a discussion. I can tell you that I'm reminded of a time, many years ago when I was in corporate world, and I aspired to have that office because it showed stature, and I couldn't understand why you could have your door open all the time because it was annoying to be interrupted all the time. Yes, I was a bad leader. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. I got to print off your list so I can absorb it.
That's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, I think it's pretty clear cut.
This is a good list.
It is.
Needs to be hanging on my wall. I got more stuff hanging on my wall than the wall.
I know. Now that's that's a concern of mine. So I'm not going to be hanging this one on my wall.
You're not going to hang it on your wall.
No. I've got enough on there. I have my major definite purpose that I read every morning, and in the evening I have. What have I got here? I've got a lot of things.
Yeah, I know. I was just noticing that too. I got a lot of things.
Yeah, I got a lot of things.
For myself, personally, I got my big yellow Shark Tank tag,
Well, yeah.
I'm gonna make the Shark Tank someday.
We'll get you there.
I'm not ready yet, but
So what I find interesting is that I've aspired to have a title and to have the outer things. I never really aspired to being a leader. I never set out to have a goal that I still don't have that as a goal, that I am a leader. I get a lot of people that tell me that I am. And, I have to look at what I just read, and I can see myself in some of these. And it's like, okay, I can see why somebody would consider me a leader. And then I come across one or two in the don'ts. And it's like, oh, well, how good am I really?
Well, I think that all of us can probably find ourselves in half of these and not find ourselves in half of these. So certainly gives you something to work on. I don't know about a pleasing personality for me, but
see, that one's so difficult. I mean, it's like, is that I mean, who are you, right?
Yeah. And what do you consider a pleasing personality?
Yeah, that's pretty subjective. Well,
yeah.
then again, I don't know. If you're harsh, if you're arrogant, if you're loud and boisterous and overbearing and dominating, it's obvious that you really don't care what somebody else has to say.
Come on in here, Cindy.
That can be pretty unpleasant. And then you've got the really angry people.
Yeah,
I can go with that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Or then the intemperates, total lack of control. It's like, I am who I am. I'm going to do whatever I do because it feels like I should be doing this right now. Those are not pleasing.
Cindy, why don't you come on in here and join us and let's talk about this.
Cindy? Hi, Cindy.
I'm just inviting.
Oh, well, that's cool. Let me say good morning to Ed and Richard and Cindy and Ed Goodman. That was N. Zimbardi I said hello to first. Omar, Dana, Good to see you all. Glad you could join us. Cindy Phillip, I saw you there. Thank you for tweeting it out. Tell a Little Bird, Jim, and Eric. Good to have you with us. Good to see you this morning. Hello, Maury.
Oh yeah, gotta do some tweeting here.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Tell a Little Bird.
Another one on this list is where did I just see it? I saw something on here about organization.
Oh, details, organizing details.
Where was that? Oh, number 9, mastery of detail.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's not what my desk says at all. I have notebooks.
No, okay,
Jack,
so
notebook.
all right, so the detail person in me says there is nothing in this list that says my desk must be neat as a pin.
I know, but then people keep emailing you and saying, "Did you do that?" And then you look at your list and you're like, "No, what you looking on?"
Delegate the list. That's no, seriously, because I'm not good at that either. I'm not good at making those lists and organizing those lists. But if I have somebody to do it for me to remind me of those things, it works out. Those other traits I have, but organizing a list and putting that all together, no, I'm all over the place.
That's what my VA is for. My VA.
Eric, how do you delegate a list when you're a solopreneur?
You get an assistant. You get an assistant. You can't afford not to have. You're laughing. You can't afford not to have an assistant.
And you're right.
I've been telling her that for a while. My VA.
Once you get one, you'll realize like what the hell. I
have a virtual assistant. Her name is Krissa. She is fantastic.
And how do you give your VA everything that's on your desk?
You don't. No, you work with her to determine
what's on your desk. Read about it. Talk about it. Do you need it? Throw it away. Go through it.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's a relationship.
What is it? Those things on your desk are probably reminders. That's probably your list. It's just scattered all over your desk to remind you to do those things, right?
Yeah, like 5,000 things.
That's the list that she gets.
Try again, Damon. Try again. Yeah, it takes a little while. The first time you work with a VA, it's awkward because you're not certain. And it took me, I guess, about a month. And then I'm looking, saying, how in the world did I do this without you?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you become dependent, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a paid dependency,
Yeah, right. But you become dependent because you rely on those things that happen. I mean, I have a list on my Evernote and things like that, but
but let's back up a second. Now, Eric, just because we're saying we've got this list that we delegate does not mean that we're not aware of the details. It just means that we are not doing the details, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I think that's what.
Yeah, I know what needs to be done, but there's things that I don't necessarily have to do, but I know they need to be done and followed up on, and I don't need to keep it in my head. So put that on a list of following up, and she'll follow up on it. And honestly, it's a good way to delegate. Go through your list and see what you can't do. Give that away, and then whatever's on your list that you have to do, you still keep it on your list, but that's your list. But all of a sudden, your list starts getting smaller when you realize other people can do those things on your list.
Yeah, and what I learned was that I had in my head what I thought she could do, which isn't fair to her because she wants me to succeed. So she's telling me, no, yes, I can do that. I can do that. I don't know how to do that, but I can figure it out. What's the deadline? That's what I love about her. What's the deadline? And I say, we've got about 60 days. That's plenty of time. Let me try to figure it out, and I'll let you know in time if I need to give it back to you. So.
Yeah, worst case, she comes back. It's not exactly what you want, but I bet there's something in there that's still helpful.
It is much easier for me to edit than create from scratch.
Good morning.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And anyway, but the other things on there, I think to mention, you don't need that title. In the military, they have a sort of a hierarchy, but actually they even embrace like total quality management, where everybody has something to offer to the team, no matter what rank you are. And I think if you think of it that way, it doesn't matter that you're working for somebody. Really, it's the reverse. If you're actually working for somebody, they should be working for you and empowering you. So when you show leadership and you do things in initiative and show your competency, that's the lieutenants that he's talking about. That's the thing. I can pass that off. I don't have to worry about it. That person will lead,
because you're good at what you do, and I recognize that.
Right.
You're good at what you do. That's why you're here. This is yours. Mm-hmm. But I, as the leader, I as the one in charge, I as the owner of the company, I still know all the working parts. Mm-hmm. And who's doing what. And I think those are the details that are important. I think.
Who's responsible for what exactly, right? I may not know everything going on.
something goes wrong or wacky, it's on me. So let's go to, unwillingness to render humble service. Willingness to do, I'm willing to do whatever it is that I tell somebody else to do in my stead. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I'd be out there sweeping the decks with everybody else all the time, and they saw that. And when you lead like that, and you're willing to do the things that you don't have to do it, but if you show them that you're willing to do it, that goes a whole long way. I mean, now they don't complain about doing sweepers on the deck every day.
Yeah, there's a level of respect that we're not, you're not expecting me to do something because you wouldn't touch it. You're expecting me to do it because you know what it needs to be done and respect my ability to do it.
Well, I think that the restaurant industry is a clear example of that. I spent many, many years in the restaurant industry, and as the restaurant general manager, you are the singular employee that has to be able to do everything in there. You're the first person who needs to head for the toilets, and clean them. For me, that was a real
comes from the top.
Yeah, that was an eye opener. I had 6 managers back in those days, and I still was the first one in the toilets.
Well, maybe you should have had a schedule that somebody else is going in there and you're managing them going in there versus, but your time would be better spent, I think, managing them than in there scrubbing.
That might have required a little bit of imagination, right?
Well, that's a never-ending task in a restaurant, especially when
at the end of the day, you're responsible for it, right? That toilet has to be cleaned. So if it's not getting done, there may be a broken process, but it still needs to get done, and then you can fix the process.
Absolutely.
So, when I look back over, probably I'm thinking the year, about 20 years ago, one of the jobs that I had, there was that fear of competition from followers because I was insecure in the job that I was doing.
That's insecurity, exactly. When you realize that you're good at what you're doing, you don't worry about that because all they can do is help you. But you see people like that, and you're weary of them because they're destructive in a team.
You're not quite sure what they're going to bring to the table. And now I understand the leeriness from others, looking back in my own struggles. But, it's all a learning process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Good morning, Nora and Laura.
I got to jump out. I just wanted to jump in and talk about the list and delegating the list.
Delegating the list.
I'll be listening, sort of. See you guys.
Okay. Oh, good to see you, Eric. Always good to see you.
What happened to Damon? We lost Damon.
I know. I'm not sure if he's up in the viewer area, if he's having difficulty getting in or what. But I want to encourage him.
Good morning, Ha. Come on in here and say hello.
There she is. Hello, Ha.
Hi.
There's Ha.
Hi.
So good to see you this morning.
For me, according to what you just read, Charlene, on top of the chart is the unwavering courage. And when he talking about number 6, the habit of doing more than pay for, I think that's a good reminder because people keep on thinking that, people will pay because they have a PhD, because how smart they are. But the truth of the matter is people pay for what you want to step in, the responsibility you want to take upon yourself and to get it done and deliver it. They don't pay because you are how smart you are.
Yeah, I learned that.
And you should always over-deliver, right?
Yes.
Yeah, give 110%.
Yes, because I believe in the power of over-promise, over-deliver.
Under-promise, over-deliver.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and two, with the unwavering courage, it is based, the way he describes it is that lack of self-confidence and courage turns into being dominant and being forceful and being unpleasant to be around, and translates that way according to what Napoleon Hill is saying, because no follower wishes to be dominated by a leader who lacks self-confidence and courage. No intelligent follower will be dominated by such a leader very long. That's how you quickly lose your people or your team or your collaborators, is by being the one that is insecure enough and afraid.
Yep.
That lacking in courage. Yep.
I can appreciate Napoleon. He'll pass a message on that, because when you have a confidence, you walk confidently into the direction that you need to lead. And then, as a leader, you create a pathway because people counting on you. If you have 15 people and everybody start to pick up their own path. No, as a leader, you have to take charge in the way that's why we have to rely on your intelligence, and we counting on your courage, because you will take a initial a direction that you think is what best for the group. And that's what I like to have leaders who know where they need to go, and they have the courage to walk confidently into the direction that they want to.
It's very attractive, isn't it?
Yes, very powerful, very attractive. Yes.
I'm
sexy.
Drawn.
It's sexy.
Sexy. Well, I'm drawn to men and women who have that confidence, who by their actions declare who they are, what values they have. They're walking it. I can see it rather than have to try to decipher it or hear it out of their mouths. And I'm really put off by those who attempt to tell me
how wonderful they are.
Yeah, but there's one level above that just really, honest to goodness, I just sit and I get my poker face and I know it happens. It's I'm going to tell you how humble I am.
Oh, yeah.
And the minute, my belief is that the minute you think you're humble, you're not. Mm-hmm. It's humble and gratitude to me are verbs. They are action. They are evidence in my behavior and your behavior and what have you. I pray for it. What?
Nor would like to know, based from your experience, what's the most important value in establishing reputation?
I have no idea. The most important value?
Yeah.
I don't know. If we look at the list of 11 for leader, and if we want a reputation as a leader, I honestly don't know that there would be one that would come out as the most important.
Yeah, there's a clear list of 11.
And that's for leadership, yeah. And I think that it's...
Nora, are you reading the book along with us?
Hey, Sheila. Oh, my God, Sheila, you're still an egg, dear.
Okay, you are reading the book.
We need to work on that. So I guess what comes to mind for me, and Ha and Sabrina, feel free to jump in, is that it is subjective if there is a single one important or most important. That's pretty subjective. When you're talking about a leader, any one of these things that's been listed could be that which is the most attractive to any one of us at any time. Timing of when I meet the person, when I see them in action, what I'm looking for, what I'm needing in a leader, I would think are all part of the most important, and that's subjective to me. What do you guys think?
Well, for me, I think that is authentic. Say what you do and do what you say, and true to yourself. And because it's important, because that your action say a lot about a person. And if you say something, you do something else, then that is, there is a discrepancy there. But if you say what you're going to do, you're going to do it. And from time and time again, you do exactly that. And
so that's consistency.
Yes. And that's a very, very important, because it's pretty much common sense. You know that, for instance, just like when people come into your show every morning, they know what to expect and they get what they expect. And that what is you gain the respect and the reputation, of the person on the blog.
All right, ladies, say good morning to Eric, but I'm going to pop out for a bit. I will catch up with you in a few. Bye-bye.
Glad you came in, Sabrina. Good to see you. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Eric.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. I usually have that effect on a room. You know, I come in, somebody wants to
and then
leave.
they start leaving. Yeah. Well, not here. We give you a little leeway.
All right.
Leeway. So what do you have to contribute to the conversation?
Well, I just, I guess, first of all, what interested me about this blab is just the subject matter, Think and Grow Rich. I can remember the first time I read that, and actually I think I only have read it once, but it's just a profound book, just a foundational book that you can almost read and meditate on to just kind of get your thinking straight. And I can remember very vividly when I was in the corporate world and I had to be at the office at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would sit in a parking lot with a cup of coffee and Think and Grow Rich at like 6:30 in the morning, because it was the only time I could read, and get that reading done before hitting the road and heading to the office. So when I see that you're doing, I presume, a regular read of this, do you do this every morning?
Yes, it's every weekday morning at 8 o'clock. We go for an hour, and then I hold the room open for 30 to 40 minutes afterwards. And in the hour, we discuss the pages that I've read.
Well,
so we're studying it. We're doing like a book study, you know. So yeah,
I'll be a regular attendee. I mean, it's a great book, great subject. And then I was just picking up on some of the answer to the question that the gentleman asked, and I think how you kind of, his question was, you know, how do you build reputation? I think reputation takes time. So how I think you mentioned consistency, and I think that's a key component. You know, when you think of something like reputation, it's something that, as I would understand it, you don't get in an hour, you don't get it in a day. It's something, if people see you behave in a certain manner, you know, whether that's good or bad, right? We haven't defined whether this is a good reputation or a bad reputation, but just reputation. It's going to be based on consistent behavior. It might take weeks or months.
I'm going to interject something here.
Okay.
It can happen pretty quick on Blab. It can happen pretty quick. There's a community here on Blab. We're talking amongst each other, and we're already telling each other, you might not want so-and-so in your Blab.
I see what you're saying.
And we're talking a matter of 2 hours, you know, and that's including going from one Blab to the other to the other. Reputation is what other people think of me. So at what level do I have control over my reputation, which is what you think of me and others as a group? And part of it is to have a set of principles by which I live, but also behave. So there I go back to, it's my behavior that determines my reputation, which is what you were saying, Eric, that if I say I'm going to do something and I do it regularly, and I show consistency, then I develop a reputation that I can be counted on. If I go back, I'm going to go back to the list here. If I show self-control in terms of as the opposite of the intemperate, the one who has no control, I kind of view the intemperate as the one, I feel like this, therefore I'm going to act like this, you know, no self-control, no editing, that sort of thing. So someone who has a modicum of control can develop a reputation that you can pretty much bet they're not going to lose it regularly. But someone who has a lot of self-control and discipline, again, you know by having watched them, having participated in discussions, you know, been around them, worked with them, what to expect when you're around them. And I wonder, I just hit on that, huh? Yeah. I wonder if it takes me a while, people. I've only got half a cup of coffee. All right, half a pot of coffee in me. All right, so there's 11 things here. And what we're doing when we are consciously aware of gaps, you know, where in these 11 things I might have gaps, and I make a conscious effort then really all I'm doing is I'm trying to be a better me that ultimately becomes more consistent as a better me.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
just a thought.
Yeah, to go back into what Eric just said, that's not my show, but I certainly would like to see and invited you to come back to this show because Charlene Puri offer a classic crock-pot learning. Because, the more you cook, the more you go over it, the more you can see the delicious, the delectable taste of this class. And I love it. I keep on coming.
You're making me hungry, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna go for breakfast right after this.
Actually, this is the classic pot learning because you just don't go through one and then you get it. The more you cook, the more you stew it, the better you get out of it because you never read the same passage and get out the same thing. Always something else, something different based on the experience that you currently experiencing. So
I agree, and that is what attracts me to this, and what will bring me back. So I will be back. I do a lot of reading. I read at least a book a month, but it's been a while since I've read Think and Grow Rich, and to go through it in a group setting and go through it, as you say, in a kind of a crock pot, let's kind of, slowly cook through these principles as a group. I mean, that's just fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Eric. I have a question though.
Sure.
In what ways do you see yourself, or do you even see yourself as a leader? And is it something you've aspired to?
Okay, so I'm feeling a little checkmate here because I heard you say something earlier where you said you don't want somebody to say that they're humble.
Oh dear, no, I wasn't seeing anything with no. That was a sincere question, and I'll tell you why. Let me share with you why I'm even asking it. Is because I've always struggled with being called a leader, and I've denied it. I've been one to just walk away because it held such a level of responsibility to it. I mean, when somebody would call me a leader and want to put me in a position of leadership because of that which I had done, I balked. And it was my own insecurities, and it was my own fear of failure, and it was me. And so I walked away from it. So I didn't have that aspiration that I wanted to be a leader. Now I had aspirations of being able to fill some gaps and to get over those fears and what have you. It's just interesting to me, and answer how you will. I know it can go deeper, it can go surface, and that's fine. It's just that I'm interested because I had such a difficult time being called a leader or accepting the responsibility. Today, I handle it much differently and much better than what I did before. So I'm seeing a growth in myself. I know, Kevin, it was a big question. He's a big boy. I think you could take it.
I'll say this. So,
and then there's Sabrina. She's giving you your answer if I made you uncomfortable. Trust me, that's not my intention.
I was going to leap right into an answer, and then I thought, Charlene is going to judge me about being humble on this, or not being humble on this.
No.
But I would say, to answer your question, yes, I do. I'm pretty comfortable with it. And if I guess the way I would define it, if you do any reading of the books of John Maxwell, he, of course, is a preeminent author on leadership. And I like his kind of quippy definition of leadership. He says, you're a leader if you look behind you and you see people are following you. And, it's a pretty simple way of determining whether you're not a leader. Do you have anybody that's following you? And that could be in, a volunteer organization, that could be in a business, that could be in any number of arenas. But if you've got people following you, then by definition, you are a leader.
I love that you said that.
Yeah, and I steal that from John Maxwell. And so Yeah, from that standpoint, I would say I am. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I work at it. You know, I work, as I mentioned, I do a lot of reading. I try to, I guess, be a good leader, be a humble leader. You know, I don't demand leadership, but I have a company where I have a couple of dozen people that, you know, work within my company that look to me for leadership and direction and so forth. So yes, I definitely see myself as a leader, whether I want to be or not. I am one.
The reluctant leader.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because it was John Maxwell's books when I read that you know you're a leader when you look back and you actually have people who are following you.
Right.
And coming to you and asking and what have you. And that's what happened to me. And that's when I became comfortable with it. And that's what also when I realized that I wasn't ready, because it was forced, you know, we're going to put you into this leadership position. Whereas instead I was doing what I wanted to do, and I was attracting people to what I'm doing. Totally different feeling. I'm okay being that kind of leader. Because it doesn't put any, see what's happening in my head? It doesn't put any of those constraints. You see, if somebody else saying you're a leader, because instead it is, oh, look, I've got this group of people that are pretty darn terrific who continue to just show up and help or participate or want to be a part of. And they're always coming to me for guidance, for answers, for direction, for, assistance, however we want to term it. And they're this group that basically are followers, that when I show up someplace, they show up, which is great because I'm not forcing them to.
Right. I think
it's just a natural extension of.
This blab here is an example of your leadership. You know, here you establish, you know, you're a moderator of this blab, and there's no boss telling me to be here, for how to be here, for the other, you know, 44 people to be here. We're here because we want to be. And so from that standpoint, I think you're a very effective leader. The other area that you mentioned that you weren't comfortable being a leader, was that more in a job position where somebody just gave you a label as a leader or a manager? And
what they were doing was they ended up, I was in a job, and they needed somebody to step in as a leader of a team that didn't have one before, and it was based on my work. And you know, I look back, and I would have selected me above the others. You know, it made sense.
You would have or would not have?
I would have.
Okay. Yeah.
When I look externally at my behavior, I would have. I was uncomfortable stepping into it because I had never been taught how to manage people, how to guide people. I had a lot of, those who've been on the blab with me know, I had a lot of social issues. I suffered from social anxiety, and I had communication issues. So it was putting me in a position that was very frightening, because the center of attention was not where I felt comfortable. So.
Now, starting to answer the same questions, I dare to take charge. Yeah, and I not because I love, because I'm the pioneer. Because if I know the situations, if I understand, and you know, because again, I'm talking about knowledge is one thing, but again, I want to take the responsibility on my knowledge. If I can lead my group to go to safety place, to go to advance or go to the next level, and if I have that capability, you know, and if I see that is nobody take charge, I will walk in and take charge, because I want to be a person that to, you know, to make the pathway.
Yes.
Because it's important.
I'm smiling because I'll do that now.
Yeah. Because when you see people that if they don't have the leader, they keep march around, and then people just so modestly just say, "Oh, I don't want to go," and then you know we will not go nowhere. If we want to advance, we need to have somebody take charge, somebody willing to put that, you know, to stick their neck out.
Yeah, I admit that today, I love what you're saying, and I could see you doing it. I could see you so gently walking in and just saying, "You're a mess. Okay, let's go this way." I'm not quite as gentle. I'm just more of a, well, I'm a little more direct. Okay, you obviously don't know what you're doing, so why don't we just go here and, that's the kind of direct take charge that I'll do.
Take the responsibility on,
Today I'll do
yeah.
it. Today
I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't call myself a leader, but I call myself a pioneer. I'm willing to take the first step. I'm willing to stick my neck out. I'm willing to take a shot first,
Yeah, I would say to both of you, what I'm observing, and maybe you observe the same thing. It seems like some of our most admirable leaders, if you think of, who you've seen in your life as a leader or maybe work for as a leader, oftentimes they're a reluctant leader. I think that's what all of us are talking about. They didn't necessarily start out to, reach the top spot, or that was their aspiration. A lot of time it's a reluctant leader. They were happy being part of the following part of the group, but circumstances evolve that made room or necessitated a leader, and so they kind of reluctantly stepped into that role. And so that might be what we're talking about here.
Well, Eric, when you were describing that, I went over to the PDF that I'm reading from and saw in those 7 or 11 identification, 11 principles, if you will, of what makes a leader. And leadership by consent is the first one. And that's really what you're describing, is that, whether I have all of those attributes in full at this moment, because honestly, it's dependent on the coffee, then it will determine whether I'm fully stepping in as a leader or not. But it's still, I've got people who are willing to follow, who are willing to do what I ask as we move forward, just as I and you have. So Kevin had a great point over here about no one is born a leader. We must develop over time. And I agree. Change your image.
Very true.
Something your heart over the bar, throw your heart over the bar, and your body will follow. Yeah, that's very, very true. And it goes back to my question of, do you set out intentionally to become a leader? I didn't. I set out intentionally to be better, to grow, and to go through exercises and what needed to happen in order to become better and to be better as Charlene Burke. And it happened that included, I turned out to be a leader in some areas. So does somebody set out to be a leader? And I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think more often than not, in my observation, it ends up being a bad thing, because their motives are one of power and control. If they seek to be a leader. Now, that's not always the case. A lot of times I think people have a genuine motive, and they just will seek a leadership position for that. But probably have heard and experienced more stories of people that if they seek out the position of leadership, it often ends bad. I agree very much with what Kevin is saying there. There's not, I don't subscribe to people being a natural born leader. I do know that, if you observe personality types, I don't know if you've maybe read books that talk about the 4 different personality types. Somebody's got a personality, certainly they have, I think, a more natural predisposition towards that take charge, take control, whereas if they're a phlegmatic or a sanguine personality or a melancholy personality, they're not as likely to do that. But I think, to Kevin's point, effective leadership is definitely something that is learned. Whether you're born with some natural tendency towards it or not, you've got to work on it. You've got to continually hone your skills. Hey, we've got 2 Erics in here. How about that?
Yes, I'll jump out in a second, but I was just going to say agree with what he was saying, that there's, I think being in the military, you had a unique advantage that you had bad leaders and you had good leaders. And the people that you wanted to work, and again, they're labels. They may have different ranks, but who are the people you wanted to work with and why? And then the people you wanted to avoid, they may outrank you, but why did you want to avoid them? There may be a personality problem. There may be that you don't trust them, that they're not competent, but those, you want to avoid them. And you see that and you're like, okay, why do I want to avoid that? Why don't I want to work with him? List of reasons. But this guy, I want to work with this guy because these are the reasons. And so he's a leader. It doesn't matter his title, his authority, or anything like that. You see those qualities that you are attracted to, and that might not be for everyone. Some people say, oh, I want to go with that bad guy because I don't want to work and I just want to hang out and do nothing, and that's their personality. But
or they're the type that they want to be led, that they prefer the follower position, and whoever has the title, they're happy to do whatever the person says, regardless of the traits involved.
Sure.
So, those are fringes. I would call them fringes of a group.
Gentlemen, nice to meet you. Charlene, thank you. I have 9 o'clock appointment. I must go.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it was a joy having you here. Have a good day, huh?
Yeah, I did too. I wasn't even going to jump back on, but I had to say that.
You just couldn't.
I couldn't resist.
Oh, Damon, please come in. This happens to poor Damon. But he is a persistent fella. Every time he's a persistent fella. It will happen. He knows this. Okay. So Kevin says when you outread the competition, you're placed ahead of the competition. Outread or lead. And Damon, you made it in, my friend. Awesome to see you. How are you?
Thank you. Awesome to see you too, Charlene. Man, it's crazy.
I had to pop back in just to say, hey, Damon, I'm glad you made it.
Thanks, Sabrina. Well, I give a good fight.
Yes, you do give a good fight.
So I know you have some great stuff to contribute. What would you like to contribute to this?
I lost the last, I missed out on the last 5 minutes or so because I was restarting my computer, and I was kind of in and out of the conversation earlier. It's been a little bit busy this morning, but yesterday I told you I couldn't come and play, and I promised that I'd be here today. So
keep your promises. That's awesome. I love that, Damon. I love that. Well, just general, what do you think of what Napoleon Hill laid out as traits of a leader?
I'm looking at those two lists.
2 lists
of a leadership of a leader, and the major reasons why people fail as leaders. And
morning.
I can identify. I mean, I'm not a self-proclaimed leader. It's never been something that I've aspired to. But I can look at both of these lists and I can see that number 5 on the major attributes of leadership is something that I'm working on, but it corresponds directly to number 1 on the reasons why people struggle as leaders. The inability to organize details. Now, there are certain details in my life I have no issue with, but when it comes to organizing my ideas and my plans, that is where I have to give a little extra effort. But I'm glad that I discovered in my life that I need to work on those things because it's helped me a lot. Just trying or giving the attempt at being better in those areas has helped me improve. But I still give a lot of work. It's a major struggle for me.
Well, I like the way that you put that. That first, identifying a gap is the way I'm going to put it.
Okay.
Is how I'm relating it to me. That's kind of how I look at it, instead of shortcomings or as failures or as lacking of things. There's a gap.
Not the F word, Charlene.
No F word. There's a there's a gap, and that gap is because some area needs to be improved, needs to be grown, needs to be paid attention to. And just the mere fact that I've identified it and start being aware of it, I've already begun a process of self-improvement in that area because I'm giving it some sunshine and some attention. And then I become aware of it as a piece of me that needs improvement. And then comes the, well, what is it I'm going to do about this? How can I improve? And I love the way you said that, Damon. That's what it's brought to my mind. That was terrific.
Thanks. Then there was something that I heard earlier, and I think it was Eric. And we were talking about how to cultivate a reputation or how to develop this reputation. And I feel like someone said something to the effect of consistency, and then Charlene, you chimed in and said, well, I don't know about that because Blab, it offers a different opportunity. But I was thinking reputation.
It doesn't have to take forever to get a reputation. How's that?
Reputation through repetition. You know, and I'm looking at what you're doing, Charlene, just by holding this space. It hasn't taken you long to earn a reputation, but it's because you come back consistently and you do this the same way every day. And it's just a matter of time before the list or the listenership starts to grow because you're nurturing that space. I mean, if you neglect it, people will fall away. But as long as you keep this thing going, Think and Grow Rich is my favorite book of all time. It's like The Matrix. You know, that's my favorite movie.
Another reason why I like you. I swear to goodness, you're hitting every button. Go ahead.
But Eric said something about, you know, he read Think and Grow Rich one time before, but it's that book that I can keep coming back to over time. Yeah. And it's like every time I peel back another layer. And depending on the growth that I've undergone, you know, in the interim, where I am at that stage in life is going to allow me to peel back another layer. I understand it a different way. I see something that I didn't see before. But I love this book, man. So, Charlene, as long as you keep cultivating the space, you're going to continue to attract people like me, Sabrina, Eric, and it's just a matter of time before it catches on, because that repetition.
Well, that's, you know, just if I'm going to be attracting more people like you and Eric Rash, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Rashi.
Rashi, and Sabrina and Eric Grill and all the wonderful people in HA and those who are fantastic in the bullpen right now, then I'm not going to go anywhere.
We won't let you.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. All right, so if everybody, I'm going to close down the recording part. I can keep the room open for 45 minutes to an hour. For as long as up to that point, I'll have to shut down because I have other things that need attending to. And we can discuss further. But for now, for the recording, I need to do a sign off, which is, this is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know, www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Now let's go forward with the day on purpose, with purpose, to grow our hearts, grow our minds, and grow our businesses. So until